Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of She Plays Games, a podcast made to celebrate women working in the video games industry. If this is your first episode, my name is Lauren, and on this show, I talk to women who work in various roles in the games industry, whether it be directly like a project manager or producer, to media roles like journalists and content creators. Even though the games industry still has a lot of growing to do, I wanted to shine a light on the women who are helping to make the industry a better and more inclusive place. And if you're listening to this as an aspiring games industry person, I hope that this podcast might help you on your journey. But before I start, I just wanted to highlight some lovely reviews I've received since starting this podcast. Here's one on iTunes from RayPep23. Very informative, geeky, and funny. Just from the first episode, I learned a lot, and it was great that there was a little geek out over a shared first installment to a franchise. I can't wait to hear more and see who else joins Lauren on her podcasting adventure. And another from Yulito4Ka, who writes, "Thank you for such interesting and informative insights. It is really inspiring for those seeking for a step into the games industries." Thank you so much to both of you for your reviews, and as Ylita4K said, inspiring others is what this show is all about. As for what's been going on in the industry, Anissa Sanusi's fantastic Limit Break mentorship program has just closed applications for this year, so congrats to you if you got your stuff in time. It's really a fantastic program set up to help minorities and underrepresented genders to get the information they need to navigate the games industry from industry veterans who are champions in their field. If you missed out this year, not to worry, I'll keep you posted on the next time Limit Break is open for applicants. But you can find out more information at limitbreak.co.uk. As for what I've been up to, I'm trying my best to keep communicating on our Discord, which you can find the link on any of my socials. And aside from that, I'm working on the launch of my official She Plays Games website. I'm really excited to have a spiffy new place for you all to listen to all my previous episodes, and hopefully it won't be too much longer until I actually do launch it. So that's enough about me. I'm really excited for today's episode as I have Rebecca Stow, who's currently a freelance games writer. Rebecca really has a great resume so far, having her work featured on publications like EuroGamer, PushSquare, Tech Radar, Daily Star, and that's just to name a few. She's been working as a freelancer for the past year, and her experience so far has been incredibly inspiring. I really hope you enjoy Rebecca's story, and if you like what I do, please be sure to subscribe to my podcast on your chosen platform. This is episode 19 of She Plays Games. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So I think what you've been doing with your career is just so inspiring to just anyone who's thinking of going into the industry through games journalism. And that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, because I think people hearing from you, it will empower them to want to try it for themselves as well. Because I think it's always really scary and really daunting to think about the possibility of reviewing games and writing features for websites.
It's a really interesting career because you have to be so unbiased going into it, and you have to prepare yourself for reviewing games that, might not be your genre, things that you're not a fan of. You might have to expect to do news writing, reporting, investigative pieces, guide work, stuff that people look at this career and I think they think, oh, it's just writing reviews and playing games. But actually, it's quite in depth, and games journalism has a lot of different paths spiking off it. So even if you go into it and think, oh, I really only want to do guide work, the most likely case is that you will have to end up doing different types of work to get to a higher level in the career, essentially.
It's really fun in that way, I think, because it opens you up. It makes you a more well-rounded person within the industry, and you have the chance to do things that maybe you never really thought that you could do.
Yeah, when I started, I was exclusively doing reviews, and I probably for about 6 months just did reviews, and the thought of even dabbling my toes into anything else that wasn't a simple 500-word review with a score and a verdict was so scary to me. I remember the first time somebody asked me if I wanted to have a go at a feature, and looking back at it now, feature writing is one of my favorite things to do, because you are just casting your own opinion on a very small section of a game or a franchise, whereas reviewing, you have to be completely well-rounded with your thoughts and the way that the game comes across for the community. So writing features was something that I was so daunted by, but now I see it as a sense of complete freedom where I can take my own opinion and put it with a game that people might not have thought those two opinions go together, or this opinion can't go with this game, or this feature that's so small can't have this big an impact on a player. But I think feature writing really helps you dig deeper and try and figure out what the developers are saying by including certain elements. And then, going even further out, I never thought I'd ever do news writing. And news writing was actually something that really helped me, because my main issue with writing was I think I was taking too long to get to my point. With news writing, it's very snappy. It's very, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, this is how much this costs. And getting to write news about lots of different games, lots of different events really helped me round out my journalism skills, because it was teaching me, oh, this is a really good way to approach this topic. And yes, news writing can seem repetitive at some points, but if you take a twist on it and approach it from a different angle, you get an entirely new perspective on what you're writing about. So it's amazing, really, the opportunities you get from one starting point.
Absolutely. I mean, so I've been to a few events myself where I've done news writing. What was it like to sort of go to your first event and or even just cover your first event?
My first event was EGX in 2017, in the September show in Birmingham. And all I remember was walking through the doors and seeing all of the video games there, because you've got indie games, you've got big games, you've got showcases, you've got events. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this all on my own. This is quite scary. But getting into it and, walking around and interviewing people and getting a first glance at some of the big games that were coming out in 2018 was really exciting, because I felt like I was delivering news to people who were at home and couldn't have attended the event. So I wanted my writing to be really crisp and clean and showcase what this event was showing off and why people should try and come to the event in the future. So not only for me was it a roundup of events, it was also, this is why more people should try and come out to these things, because look at what they offer. So once again, as well as it kind of improving my writing and teaching me how to cover a video game without, going on for ages and ages about the color and the gameplay and the music, but just covering it really, quickly. It also taught me to be more confident with attending events and sort of come out of my shell a little bit, because I was always very shy and very closed off. So, events is another thing. It's something that's really helped me learn a new aspect of writing, because a lot of the time when you're covering an event, you're at the event from 9 till 6 and your editor wants the article back for the next morning. So you have to learn how to pace yourself and still deliver a quality product, but without completely exhausting yourself, which is almost impossible at events like this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, trying not to spend too much time playing a demo of something as well. I found myself wanting to finish out a whole demo, and I'm just well, I could go to this meeting. I could go to this next game, but I just want to finish this, damn it. I just want to play.
Yeah.
It's also a great way to meet other people in the industry as well, because you're constantly talking to people who are either PR, community, focused on individual games. And I think it's nice to have somebody to actually talk to, I think, about it as well.
Yeah, first time I went, I was still very fresh into video games journalism in 2017. I published my first ever article on a website in February, and then in September was when I attended EGX. So I'd only been doing it for about 6 months, and it was, completely free, very casual. I worked with this lovely little website where I had complete free reign of what I wanted to do. Very rarely did we have strict deadlines. It was more about, do you want to have a go at writing on a platform that has a few more viewers? Because I had my own little blog, but I don't think anyone read it. So for me, it was kind of a stepping stone into, here's my work, and a wider audience get to see my work from this website. So attending that first event at EGX, I'd already got quite a few people I'd spoken to regularly about my work on this website, and it was nice going to EGX. And even though I was really daunted and really overwhelmed at times, it was really nice to just go like, oh, I know you. Should we go and have a coffee together and talk about, just step out of the journalism for a minute and just meet the people who I've been communicating with online for, nearly a year. So it's like you said, as well as it being a fantastic work opportunity, gaming events are just filled with people who love video games. So I felt so at home at every EGX I've ever attended. I just feel like this is exactly where I want to be, and this is what I want to be doing.
So sort of sidestepping a bit with one of your features that you did, actually, I think it was with IGN, you did a ranking of all of the Resident Evil games. And Resident Evil obviously is a topic that's been really popular recently, especially with the Resident Evil 3 remake. So a bit of a personal question, but how do you feel about the remakes of Resident Evil and like with Resident Evil 4 remake being sort of in the air? What do you think that needs to do in order to surpass Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 3 remake?
So I only played the demo of the Resident Evil 3 remake, but I did play all of Resident Evil 2 remake. And I loved the Resident Evil 2 remake, and most of that was because I didn't play the original, and I didn't play the original 3 either. So for me, it was almost like stepping into this brand new gaming world that I didn't know anything about and getting to play it, in full HD, beautiful graphics, really gripping story. And I didn't really know what was going to happen in the narrative. So I was completely gripped the entire way through Resident Evil 2. My boyfriend was like, oh, this happens now, and then this happens, then you go here. And I'm like, stop, I'm trying to immerse myself in this brand new experience. Resident Evil 3, I do want to play. I've been a bit busy recently, but I'm going to make it a point to play that game before the end of this year. And Resident Evil 4 is an interesting one because I did play the original Resident Evil 4 on the Wii. And I don't know if Resident Evil 4 needs a remake. I'm one of those people who I think the first attempt at it is incredible. And I think it's such a good combination of the gameplay, the graphics, the way that the story is told in that is so gripping. And I think it looks pretty good for as old as it is now. So I'm in the boat of, I think I'd rather they focus on Resident Evil 8 because that's something brand new and exciting. If they do remake Resident Evil 4, they're hinting at, I will play it and I will love it because I love the original. But my mindset is more, I think that game's pretty damn perfect. So I'd rather that they focus on a brand new experience for everyone to enjoy from scratch, where nobody, knows what's going to happen going into it.
I guess that is sort of the thing, as you say, you didn't play the original Resident Evil 2. And I don't know, is it quite hard to play Resident Evil 4 now? I don't know if has it been remastered?
It's been remastered a couple of times. I played it on the Wii about quite a few years ago now. And when I played it on the Wii, it was fine. But I did have a go with it on the Switch, and I found the controls really jarring. I can't remember exactly what they changed the controls to, but it was something that when I held a controller, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel natural. I think sometimes you play a video game and you're like, oh, well, this is the jump button, and you can pick things up straight away. And when I replayed it on the Switch, I was a bit, it's taking a long time to get used to. I preferred it more when it was but then again, that's the Wii controller, which is a very strange, very different controller to what most of us are used to now. So it's interesting. I think that's something they'd have to take into consideration, if they did go forward with doing the remake, because I don't know if a lot of people liked the Switch controls. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's a part of me as well that's sort of like, I don't want to see Leon different. I just when I imagine Leon, I imagine him as Resident Evil 4 Leon. Not even the remake Leon. I don't even he's Resident Evil 4. It's Resident Evil 4 Leon. So it should be, it will be interesting when it does come out. But yeah, so getting back to your career, you've had, as you said, you've had your work featured in many high quality publications, including IGN, which we just mentioned. But Which piece so far have you just been most proud of?
I've got a few. I think that overall, my entirely most favorite is the official Xbox Magazine's investigative piece I did last year, I want to say, at the end of last year, start of this year. It was called The Future of Episodic Gaming. And actually, I had the honor of interviewing Mary Kenny, who I believe you've had on the podcast.
Yes. Insomniac Games writer. She's fantastic.
Yes, yeah. She is fantastic. I love her. She's such a big idol of mine, and I loved her work with The Walking Dead. And this article was all about, with Telltale closing down, where are episodic games going to go from here? So I had the chance to interview a lot of people who I really admired and respected, including Mary. And I think it all tied together in a really nice way. And it's just one of those pieces that I look back on now, and it was a 15-page spread in the magazine. So I'm really happy with how it all came together. I think it raised a lot of interesting questions about the future of this genre, ups and downs, positives and negatives. And it all tied together exactly how I wanted it to. But it's just one of those pieces I look back at now, and I'm really grateful that I got to do it. And my editor was happy to let me have 10 pages of the magazine to run with. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, but honestly, interviewing Mary was one of the best pieces of that, because I love her and I've idolized her for so long. So actually getting her thoughts in an article of mine was definitely one of my career highlights.
So is that how it works with magazine? I'm sorry if this is like a really daft question. So do you get like an amount of pages that you have to fill?
So I've done quite a bit of magazine work for about a year, and usually with articles like that, you have to pitch an idea. And I was so interested I keep saying that. I was so interested in investigating episodic games. It's such a mouthful. And I said to my editor, this is an idea I'm really interested in. I was thinking that if I could, I would go and interview a few developers, a few PR people, just to try and get lots of different takes on what the people in the industry think about episodic gaming and where they think it's going to go now that Telltale, such a big company that pushed episodic games, now that Telltale have gone. And he said, yeah, that sounds great. Here's how many words I want, here's your requirements, I want you to try and interview these many people. And I just ran with it from there, and he was really happy with the finished product.
Do you feel like it's more or less restrictive than writing it for a online publication?
I guess it's kind of interesting to ask that, because to me, I feel like I've actually never done an investigative piece for like an online company or for a website. I liked that with the magazine, I got to try and pull in readers, because obviously I was writing for Xbox Magazine. I have to pick games that are only on the Xbox. So say it had been a online piece, I would have had more freedom with, these are PS4 exclusive games and these are Switch exclusive games. But there are a lot of episodic games that are on the Xbox. So I didn't really ever have any, I wish I was to write about PS4 games in this piece. I found that I picked enough games to flesh out my opinion, and then also some opinions that maybe disagreed with the questions I was asking. So I got a really interesting mix. And then I really enjoyed tying it all together and saying, overall, this is what episodic games have delivered us. This is the negatives, these are the positives. And I was just really proud of it, because I think it's an article that raises a lot of questions and then kind of answers a lot of concerns people who I knew were talking about at the time. So it will always be one of my highlights, my stand in my room in like a pile of magazines I've been in, and I look at it every now and again, and I just think I'm really happy with how that came together.
And that is such the lovely thing about print, is that like it's just, you can save it in a way that you just really can't do with online. Like, we can go back and reread our articles online, and of course it's fine, but there's something about having your words printed out that just feels so final. Like it just feels so complete. Like there's no way, you can never edit it again because it's done. And I used to love getting magazines in the post, especially game ones. Like I was subscribed to Game Informer when I was a kid. And I just always used to love the way in which they presented the interviews, the way that the imagery flows in the article and stuff. It's just, I think that's really, really cool that you were able to have the opportunity, especially with now that like Future Publishing have actually just announced that the official Xbox magazine, unfortunately, will be closing after 20 years of service, which is crazy. And unfortunately, it seems like print is kind of on a decline. How do you think that this will impact the industry and how like we do sort of this kind of editorial content?
It was really sad because I wrote for them for probably about 6 months, and it was kind of like a family to me.
Yeah.
It was a great magazine. It was run by some really talented and some really lovely people. I do think that coronavirus was probably a factor, because that seems to have just been a factor in a lot of negative things that have happened over the past few months. But I do agree with you. I do think that print is in decline. I think that lots of people now are kind of realizing that they can get a lot of content for free on the internet. But at the same time, I do think that there's something about, you know, I guess like the movement towards online is that people are trying to, or at least starting to accept now, that sometimes you do need to pay for content. So I do think that there is an aspect of online work that is still paid for, that is sort of mirroring that of print work, because you still have to pay to access it. I mean, I love, like you said, I love magazine work. I loved every month getting a new magazine. I used to take them to university with me. And then when I was featured in them, I was, you know, showing everyone, this is my article, this is what I've been in. So it's sad, but I do agree. I think print is in decline. I think that that's the nature of the world we live in now. I just think that there will always be some print magazines. So maybe some really big publications will always manage to keep their heads above water. And maybe even some smaller specialist fan run magazines will continue to go. But I have noticed it, you know, recently over the past few years, just getting a little bit downhill. But I think that it's sad. But I think I think everything now is turning online, and everyone's realizing that there's a lot of content online that they don't need to pay for. It doesn't mean that, you know, magazine content is stuff that you shouldn't have to pay for, because people work really hard for, as you said, the layouts, the imagery, tying the whole thing together. But unfortunately, yeah, I do think that we're seeing a little bit of a decline in print, which is really sad, because it's a lovely medium to work in and to be published in.
It is funny that you say about that as well, about like, I've seen quite a few fanzines, whew, that's hard to say too,
Yeah.
Being published. Not so much in terms of like, I don't know if I've seen so much in terms of editorial, but I've seen it in terms of like fan art and stuff like that. So I am kind of wondering if that might be a way to do it in the future. Because I mean, I think some of them are still printed. There's quite a few that are just like sort of PDF versions, but that would be nice if that did come to pass, because I think it's so hard with that kind of medium, because, or so interesting with that kind of medium, because I guess with the fact that they have to be edited and they have to be like on point by the time they release, like there is this sort of higher class of, not to say that being online is like not, but there are, as you say, there's like quite a few fish in the sea as far as like people just producing blogs. I'm not saying that they're not good like editors. It's just that there's such a big finality with printing something versus writing it online. Like it's just, I don't know. It's just, I guess because you can't ever take it away. It's just so it's
final, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you hand something into an editor for a magazine edit, you're, you know, thinking, okay, they're going to have a look at it, and then what they're happy with is final. Whereas if you write something on a blog, or if you write something on a website, you can go, oh, oops, I missed, you know, this mistake, or this information is now inaccurate, and you know, can we change that? And it's changed in a heartbeat, and that's you know, all done.
And it's also nice to not have a comment section on a magazine.
Yes, it is.
It's lovely. But yeah, so you've spent quite a lot of time now building out your portfolio as a freelancer, and you've contributed, as we've said, to a lot of different publications. Was freelancing the route that you always sort of intended to take due to its like amazing freedom? Or is it part of like a longer goal around becoming a staff writer somewhere?
Pretty interesting, because I never started freelancing with the intention of being a freelancer, if that makes sense. I basically, when I was about 18, 19, 20, and I was just getting into this, I just thought, I love writing about video games. If I could be paid to write about video games, that would be fantastic. And that was my mindset for months and months. And then when I did start getting paid, and when I eventually moved full time into freelance, I thought, you know, I've come to the realization now that I just love talking about video games. I'm so passionate about talking about video games, and I'll talk to anyone. I'll talk about any game. It doesn't matter if we have conflicting opinions. I love debating things with people. So I guess wherever I get taken on this career journey of mine, as long as I can talk about video games, that would be the ultimate goal for me.
Yeah, I think that's a very nice thing, isn't it? Like, it's so much about the games industry from a journalist perspective is sort of going with the flow. You just take the opportunities that come to you, or you reach out for. Like, it's very exciting in that regard.
Definitely. Because I never expected, if you'd have said to me, for example, back in 2018, that I would have written for EuroGamer, IGN, official PlayStation magazine, official Xbox magazine, I would not have believed you. I would have thought, no, I wrote for Square XO for such a long time, for nearly a year, that I was so content with just writing for them. And then when I started writing for other publications, I was so content with writing for that publication. So I've always been very taking things as they come. And as I said, as long as I can talk about video games in my future career, I'm going to be very happy with that, I think.
So you've been reviewing games now for over 3 years. How do you make sure you're always improving the way you critically look at games? And what is it that you love being on this side of the editorial?
When I started, I was it's really interesting because I've always really enjoyed English. At school, English was always my best subject, and I always enjoyed looking at things with a deeper motive than just seeing what was on the surface. And when I started writing about video games, I needed a lot of help. Let's say that. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know how to critically analyze everything. I used to go into things with going, this is what I loved, and I didn't really like this part. And anyway, this is what I loved again. So I wasn't really looking at it in terms of, my job is to deliver a piece of work that other people will look at and will help them decide if they want to purchase into a franchise or if they want to buy a product. So with the help of editors, and editors are a godsend, I think so many people have really helped me out just by saying, oh, I would do this in the future, or I would think about using this, or this voice is really good, keep doing that. That's really helped me look at games in a different light. And now when I'm reviewing something, I'm always taking notes, and I'll be thinking about how other people will look at the product that I'm looking at. So I'm not just thinking, this is my opinion, all that matters. I'm thinking, well, this is my opinion, but other people might think this, and I can see how other people would see it this way. And I pull all of my notes together to try and make a really well-formed review that is still my opinion, because that's what video game journalists do. They have to give you their opinion, and then you have to decide based on their opinion and their roundup of the game if you want to purchase it. But I'm not just going, this is my opinion, it's the only opinion that matters, you should buy this game or you shouldn't buy this game. This is what I thought about it, but you know, other people might find this more interesting, other people might find this too challenging. So definitely my voice has evolved in those 3 years, and I'm at the point now where I'm still learning. I don't think you ever stop learning.
No.
Editors are so helpful. They are such a godsend in this career. They really are, like, the ones who go through everything and go, I see what you've tried to do here, I would do it this way. And I think taking those notes has really helped me shape my writing, so I'm coming across a little bit more confident and a little bit more well-informed when I'm talking about video games today.
I think like the hardest bit for me when I was reviewing games was reviewing games that I didn't really understand the fan base. Like
Definitely.
That was so hard. Like there's been quite a few games where like I've just never encountered that type of game before. So I was just kind of like, how on earth do I get into the mind of a fan of this game who may be reading my review? And like, I think the worst one for me, not knocking it by any means, but it was this game called Mugen Souls. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, very vaguely.
It was just like, I love JRPGs, but it was just such a different type of JRPG than I was used to.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was doing such a disservice to fans of the game by just being like, I am really lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how do you sort of handle those situations if you have?
Yeah, I've definitely been in situations like that. Every time somebody asks me to review a sports game,
Yeah,
I'm always a bit like, okay, I'll do it, because I like in branching out to new genres and seeing what other types of games are out there. But I think that you always get people who are like, oh, you didn't talk about this feature and it's really important. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that was a key feature, because
it's like, didn't even know it was there.
yeah, I didn't even notice that. I'd say talking to other journalists helps me a lot. Talking to my editors, talking to people in the community, I might say, here's my review of this. And they go, oh, I really enjoyed this feature that you didn't mention in your review. And then if I happen to review that franchise again, I'm a little bit more informed than I was when I originally reviewed it. But watching videos, watching, release trailers, watching the developers talking about their upcoming game, all those tiny things have always helped me sort of know what I'm supposed to be talking about in reviews a little bit more. Just the small things that you can kind of pick up on, and what people are enthusiastic about. You think, okay, well, that's important, so I must make sure that I'm mentioning that.
Yeah, that's like the lovely thing about YouTube and just online in general, because we do have so many more resources. I don't know what people did before, like when they were reviewing games and they had just had no clue like what type of game it was. Like that must have just been so difficult to do without like any indication really, other than going to events of what the game is supposed to be.
Yeah. Thankfully though, we're at a place now, aren't we, where we can communicate with lots of different people and get lots of different opinions.
And so I noticed as well, when you were starting out, you were also doing your degree for English and media, and then also working at game. What was that like to like juggle all of those hats?
Stressful. So I started video games journalism in 2017. I got my job at Game at Christmas 2017. So at that point, I was about 2 years into my degree. So I started in 2015 for my degree. So I did my first 2 or 3 years. Yeah, 2 years at university. Pretty chilled out. Not much stress. Getting on like with my studies. And at that point, I was really getting into my media degree, because I did a joint degree. So my English studies and my media studies were separated. And I was enjoying English, but I was really pulled towards media. And it helped me a little bit when I decided I wanted to do a bit more writing about journalism and about gaming, because I was so passionate about gaming. And I thought, I really like writing about games. I have a media degree, so I know like a few things about the media and how things are brought across to consumers. And I think, so 2017 to 2018, and I graduated in 2018. So the most stressful time for me was the end of 2017, when I just started writing my dissertation, and I was juggling my dissertation, my time at game, my video games journalism, and that was really stressful. But I was very lucky at that point to only be writing for Square XO, and I didn't have a lot of pressure at Square XO. I could say to my editor, look, I'm doing my dissertation, I'm doing Black Friday at game, I don't have any time to write an article this week. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like you forget about all that stuff, like Black Friday as well. And that was like when Black Friday was becoming a bigger thing over here as well.
My first Black Friday came, I think, a week after I'd started writing my dissertation. And for that entire weekend, I just had to say to my tutors, I can't do any dissertation work this weekend. I'm either at work doing a midnight launch, very stressed, exhausted. I was like, I'll get back to it in the week, and we'll just have to write this weekend off, because this weekend is owned by retail.
Yeah.
It was hard. I wouldn't lie and say it was easy. It was really stressful, and a lot of the time I did think, well, the journalism thing is the only thing I'm doing that's for free. It's the only thing I'm doing that I'm only getting experience out of. So maybe I should drop it. But at the same time, it was like the only thing I was really getting a lot of joy from.
I know.
So I basically just slowed down on the journalism thing, and I focused on the writing thing. The dissertation thing, because that's very important. That was the most important thing. And I just tried to, when I was at work, be really present and being at work, and just try to forget about everything else I was doing on the side.
But it's like it's a very important decision that we all make, like, from time to time, is that, like, yeah, you know, sometimes the things that we love the most, just they, as much as we love them, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, like, look, this is going to have to wait for right now. Like, I just can't, I can't do it. And thankfully you get to the other side, eventually, but like, yeah, it is such a hard decision to make where you're just like, but it's so good that you were honest with yourself in what you could realistically handle.
Yeah, I remember being quite sad about it though, because I got to this point where I was publishing articles every single Tuesday and I was writing them, you know, in the week between. And towards like November and December, when things at work were crazy, because I did work in retail, I worked at games, so everybody's buying consoles, everybody's buying video games. And then I was doing my dissertation at university, which, as I already mentioned, was the most important thing at the time, because I didn't just do 3 years of a degree for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think even though I had to drop the journalism for a tiny bit, it was still really good that I was working at game, because I was still talking about video games every day. And I was still finding ways to indulge in my passion at work, because somebody might come in and say, oh, my favorite game is this. And I'd be like, no way, it's my favorite game too. And we talk about that. And then, you know, I'd point them to new games they might like. So I always felt like I was learning. I just felt like I had to put on pause the thing I wanted to do the most. But thankfully, about 2 months later, even if that, maybe a month, I managed to finish my dissertation and I got to get back to writing journalism again.
So when did you realize that like journalism would be your permanent career option, when you felt like you could leave game?
So I got paid for the first time in January 2009. Oh, I don't know. It was either 18 or 19. I can't remember. If those years were so like not long ago, but I feel like they were like 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's weird how that happens.
Yeah, so I got paid at the start of January, and I think it was 2019 I got paid. So my very first article went up 2019 and it was a paid one. And I was like, this is such a good way to start the year. I want to make this a more common thing for me. I still wanted to do free work, because at that stage I was still learning a lot of things and I was amazed that I'd been paid for anything anyway. And then I was continuously paid from January 2019, and it got to the point where, because I was being paid, I was expected to turn out a higher quality of work, and it was really hard to balance my journalism and my job at game. And it definitely got to the point where felt like I was being torn in two places, and I really felt like I was being forced to pick between my retail job and the thing I knew I wanted to do. And I will tell you, I'll be the first to say it, leaving game with no job in mind, just the idea that I'd been able to be paid for a few freelance articles was terrifying, because you're going from stability to hopefully you can get paid, but it's not a guarantee. That time was quite stressful. I was very lucky that at that point in my life, the Daily Star were offering me a retainer. So I managed to get on that retainer, and I did a few months of work while I was still at game and I was at the Daily Star. And it definitely got to a point where at work I was thinking about journalism, and then when I was doing my journalism I was thinking about work, and I just thought, I have to, my retail job, I know that I have to just take the plunge and just move on. And it was really scary, but I'm really glad I did it, because I wasn't producing as high quality work because I was so stressed being in two places at once. So yeah, it was about, I think I left my job in March. So I think all through January, February, March, I was thinking, I can't do this much longer. And I just thought, you know what, worst case scenario, I can always just get another retail job. But this seems like a good starting point for my dream job if I leave now. So I thought I'm just gonna go with that.
Yeah, it's really brave to be able to do that and be able to make that decision. And as you were building into the games industry, were there any journalists that you looked to for inspiration, and have you been able to connect with anyone as potential mentor for you?
I don't know if I had like a mentor, but I have so many people who I look up to. I remember being very new to this and always looking up to Jem Simpkins. She's editor of Edge. But when I was looking up to her, she was writing for Official PlayStation magazine, and I thought, I so want to do that. And I followed her on Twitter. I read all of her articles. I tried to see what she was doing in games journalism and how I could try and mirror that. And she was always one of my inspirations. Aoife Wilson, who does video work for EuroGamer, she was another one who I was just awe-inspired by, and I was lucky enough to meet her at the Sekiro preview I went to last year, and that was like mind-blowing to meet who you've always thought, wow, you are so incredible at what you do, and it's amazing that you've got to where you are, and then to meet them and just be able to talk to them was incredible. I really do, as I said earlier, I really do think editors have been a godsend. So the editors for the Daily Star, Don Pepin and James Wright, they've really helped me understand how I need to tune into my journalistic voice a little bit more. And I know that they're people who would always be there for me, even, you know, if I moved on from writing articles from the Daily Star. I know I could always go and say, oh, you know, what do you think of this? Or how do you think I'm coming across in this article? So I'm massively appreciative of them. And then obviously not in the journalism world, but I'm really grateful for my partner because he's always been there and he's always like looked over my articles and gone, that's not an English word. Do that again. This doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I wouldn't say I've had like an actual mentor, but I feel very grateful to be in a community of other fellow freelance journalists who are very supportive of each other. And I know if I've ever needed help from any of my friends, I know that they're there for me. Even if it was just, oh, I'm stuck on this part in a game, you know, can you tell me how you got through it so I can continue to do it because I'm writing a guide for it? And they'd always be like, yeah, here you go. This is what I did. So I feel so cool. Extremely lucky. Yeah, I just feel really lucky that I'm surrounded by people who are very like-minded and we all just want to help see each other grow. So I do feel very honored to be part of this amazing community.
That's really nice. It's really healthy, like that everybody's in it to help each other. It's so important to have that sort of community mentality, as I've learned like throughout this whole experience or through my experience with the games industry is that there's like times where it can be easy to be like a sort of cutthroat person or to be like an enemy with someone. Like I've had times where like people have called me out or challenged my authority. And like, but like to look at your peers with like just happiness and camaraderie, it's so much more beneficial and it's so much more, it's just more beneficial for, I think, everybody involved. So I think that's definitely really important.
And I feel like a lot of people think, oh, isn't it quite cutthroat journalism because everybody wants the same jobs? But I haven't experienced that at all. I've just experienced people lifting each other up. And I think that's why I'm so happy that I'm part of, you know, the community I'm part of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's the much better way, the much more healthy way to come into this industry. And as a final point, what are your thoughts around the next generation? Do you think there will be a shift towards even more specialized publications, or do you think it's just going to be business as usual?
I'm really interested about this because obviously you've got PlayStation Magazine and they will continue to support everything that PlayStation do. I would love to see Xbox Magazine make a return in some way because I do think that it's a console that's huge. And, you know, there are hundreds of people who solely play on Xbox and only want to know about Xbox news. So I definitely think that there's like an opening now, you know, in the community for someone to come in and say, look, this is an area that we could talk about that no one's talking about. So, definitely. I'll definitely say that we'll get specialized publications, though I don't think it will be too intense. I still think it's going to be websites covering a lot of different features, a lot of different brands and a lot of different games. But I do wonder if, you know, I'd love to see Xbox Magazine come back. I really would. But I do think that, you know, there will be some other form of support for Xbox in a magazine or a print form. I think that that's something we can probably expect.
I guess that's the other thing as well. Like with the closure of things like Xbox Magazine, there's so many talented people who brought that magazine together and managed it. And now I don't know where they are in terms of jobs, but like if they were able to create something and use the talents that they already have, like that would be all the more reason to have something else to work on. And yeah, I really do hope that people in those kind of positions can make lemonade out of lemons, you know, like it would be so great.
Because working with that team, they were so talented and they were so passionate about what they were doing. And I just think it would be really nice to see, you know, them thrive after that sad bit of news about Xbox Magazine closing down.
I mean, we've seen it so many times with like other websites like Games Trailers. They've become easy allies, and there's been like Kind of Funny Games. They've like massively smashed it on Patreon and everywhere else. Like there are so many people who have had like sort of stops in their career or have just made decisions to leave certain environments that they deemed toxic and have been able to succeed. And yeah, it would be really great. But yeah, either way, thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been really, really fantastic to talk to you about your career in journalism. And I really hope that we get to see so much more from you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
That's it for this episode of She Plays Games. Be sure to follow Rebecca on Twitter at RebeccaStow97 and check out her site, which is rebeccastow.co.uk. Also, if you want more episodes of She Plays Games, please be sure to subscribe to me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube by searching She Plays Games, and on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at She Plays Podcast. If you want to be on the show or want to nominate someone to come on the show, you can email me at sheplayspodcast@gmail.com. See you all next time on She Plays Games.